The Galactic Council chamber floated quietly in orbit around a dying star. Its walls shimmered with pale silver light, and the air carried the low hum of energy fields keeping the structure stable. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the circular hall, their eyes focused on the massive screen at the center showing a small blue planet, Earth. For years, the Council had debated what to do with humanity, and now they had decided. Ambassador Tyrell of the Valari Empire stepped forward. His long, narrow face showed no emotion. "The humans have ignored our laws again," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They have expanded into restricted systems. They have built fleets without approval, and they continue to act without permission from this council." Around him, voices murmured in agreement. The Zenari delegate hissed softly. "They rise too quickly. Their defiance spreads like fire." Another from the Othran Dominion added, "They must be reminded who rules this galaxy." The council chair, an ancient being of light named Valor, raised a hand for silence. "Then it is agreed," he said. "The humans will be warned one final time." His words carried weight across the chamber. "A transmission will be sent to Earth. They will surrender all weapons, disband their fleets, and submit to galactic oversight. If they refuse, we will isolate them." The decision was unanimous. The message was sent. It crossed the void, passing stars and dust clouds, until it reached the Sol system. On Earth, inside the orbital command citadel high above the Pacific, a group of humans gathered around a glowing holoscreen. The message played in perfect translation. "Humans of Earth," said the alien voice. "You have violated interstellar law. You have built fleets beyond your rights. You have expanded without permission. The Galactic Council demands immediate surrender of all war assets in compliance with universal law. Refusal will lead to your isolation from all civilized worlds." For a long time, no one spoke. The room was silent except for the hum of reactors far below. Admiral Serena Holt stood with her hands behind her back, her eyes fixed on the glowing symbols. Her voice was quiet but steady. "So they finally sent the threat." She looked toward the council members of Earth, scientists, generals, and diplomats, all frozen in disbelief. "They think we'll kneel," she added softly. General Rains folded his arms. "They don't understand us," he said. "They never have." On the ground, across cities and colonies, people saw the same message. It played on every screen, in every home, on every ship. On Mars, workers paused inside domes of red dust. On the Moon, soldiers stopped training to stare at the broadcast. On Earth, billions of eyes looked up as one. The words were clear: surrender or die forgotten. But humans did not surrender. In the capital city of New Geneva, the Terran Assembly met under heavy skies. Every delegate had seen the alien message, and every one of them carried the same fire in their eyes. No one suggested peace. No one suggested silence. They remembered their ancestors who had survived wars, disasters, and near extinction. They remembered who they were. Back in orbit, Admiral Holt stood before a live transmission array. The Galactic Council had given them 1 day to respond. She didn't wait that long. The humans replied in less than an hour. Across the galaxy, every channel went dark. Every screen flickered. The symbol of the United Earth Defense appeared, a blue and silver crest glowing against black space. The transmission began. Admiral Holt stood firm, her voice steady. "To the Galactic Council," she said, "we have heard your demands. You claim authority over the stars, yet you forget who reached them without your help. You speak of peace, but your peace is slavery. You speak of order, but your order is fear." Her tone hardened. "You have mistaken our silence for weakness. You have mistaken our patience for surrender." The room full of alien leaders fell into silence as her words echoed through every transmission point in the galaxy. Her eyes glowed in the blue light of the hologram. "We do not bow. We do not surrender." "You wanted an answer?" she said. "Here it is." Her final words came like thunder. "Humanity declares war." The message ended. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, no one moved. No one spoke. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the alarms began to sound. Distant, faint, but growing louder. Council sensors detected something massive. Hundreds of human warships were leaving orbit, engines flaring blue against the blackness of space. From Earth to Mars, fleets began to move. Docking clamps released. Engines ignited. Commanders issued codes in unison. For centuries, humanity had avoided war among the stars. But the stars had brought war to them. Admiral Holt watched from her command deck as the first ships entered formation. Outside her viewport, the dark void glowed with light from the engines. They wanted an answer, she whispered again, her voice calm. Now they have one. Across the void, the Galactic Council realized too late that the humans were not like any species they had ever ruled. They were not guided by fear or by the promise of safety. They were driven by something deeper, unity, defiance, and a will that refused to die. The threat had been sent. The answer had been delivered. The war had begun. The stars above Earth burned cold and distant as fleets began to stir from their slumber. In silent docks that orbited the Moon and Mars, massive warships hummed to life, their hulls gleaming silver against the blackness of space. One by one, ancient vessels built in secret for generations awoke. Humanity's answer was not just words. It was motion, power, and purpose. Admiral Serena Holt stood on the bridge of the flagship Dauntless, the first of the Titan-class ships ever built. The vessel stretched almost 5 kilometers long, its armor forged from dark matter alloys and its energy core capable of lighting a small sun. Crew members rushed through corridors, their faces determined yet calm. The air was thick with a sense of history repeating itself. Humanity had been challenged before, and every time they had risen stronger. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in chaos. The transmission of Earth's declaration had spread faster than any light-speed message before it. Dozens of alien species had tuned in, watching the words of Admiral Holt echo through their systems. Some thought it was madness. How could one world challenge thousands? Others felt something different, something they couldn't name: fear. Ambassador Terrell stood once more in the council chamber, his composure cracking. "They dare to defy the entire council," he shouted. "They think they can fight all of us?" His voice shook with disbelief, but Chair Valor remained still, his glowing form flickering faintly. "They do not think," he said slowly. "They know." A young analyst from the Othran Dominion rushed into the chamber, clutching a datapad. "Counselors, our deep space sensors have detected massive energy spikes near Sol. Hundreds of ships. No, thousands." The chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouted, lights flickered, and a wave of dread swept through them. Humanity's silence for centuries had not been idleness. It had been preparation. Back on Earth, the United Defense Command broadcasted a single message to all human colonies: stand together. The age of unity begins. From the frozen domes of Europa to the mining colonies of Titan, humans gathered around communication screens. Soldiers boarded transport ships, engineers armed drones, and civilians watched with quiet pride. For the first time in history, every human settlement on every world acted as one. In orbit, Admiral Holt looked out across the fleet assembling before her. Hundreds of ships formed lines, their drives pulsing with blue light. Smaller corvettes darted between them, transferring supplies and messages. The command AI, a calm, synthetic voice named Athena, reported softly, "All fleets report ready, Admiral. Awaiting your orders." Serena exhaled slowly. "Then let's remind them who we are." The Dauntless moved forward, its engines igniting with a roar that shook the void. One by one, the fleets followed. The stars rippled as thousands of human warships formed into perfect formation, a storm of steel and light stretching across the heavens. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council attempted to maintain control. Emergency meetings filled the chamber. Panic spread like a virus. Some members demanded immediate retaliation, others suggested negotiation, but none could agree. Humanity's message had been clear. They would not kneel. The Valari representative slammed his claws onto the desk. "They cannot stand against our combined armadas," he hissed. "We will strike their system, crush their defenses, and show them the meaning of submission." Chair Valor's light dimmed. "And if we fail?" he asked quietly. "What then?" No one answered. Across the Council's communication networks, strange data began to appear, encrypted human signals, impossible to trace. The words repeated endlessly in their language. "We remember." Nobody knew what it meant, but it spread through every system like a ghost in the machine. In the darkness beyond Neptune, a hidden fleet of unmanned drones activated. They were silent, sleek, and invisible to standard sensors. They extended, humanity's eyes beyond the solar system, watching, listening, preparing. Every move the Council made was already under surveillance. Humanity had learned long ago that victory didn't belong to those with the biggest fleet, but to those who saw first and struck last. On Mars, General Rains stood on a balcony overlooking the crimson horizon. "All my life," he said softly to his aide, "we prepared for this day. They always thought we were reckless. They never understood. Survival made us clever." He looked up at the sky where ships left trails of blue light. Let's give them the future they feared. Hours later, the first wave of Terran vessels left the system. They were not heading to attack, not yet. Their mission was to send a message. A single ship, the Odyssey, entered hyperspace toward the central Galactic Council beacon, carrying one transmission file marked with Earth's seal. Inside it were 3 words: "We are coming." In the Council's core world, alarms blared as the signal arrived. Delegates rushed to analyze it, but before they could react, every system screen across the city flickered. The image of Earth appeared once again, glowing blue and bright. Then came the voice of Admiral Holt, calm and unshaken. "You wanted us silent. You wanted us still. But humanity was never made for silence." The transmission ended, but in its echo, thousands of Council sensors detected something far more dangerous. Human fleets jumping between systems at once, moving faster than they thought possible. Humanity had developed new warp technology, something unknown to the galaxy. As the Council scrambled to respond, Chair Valor finally spoke. "We have awakened something ancient," he said quietly, "something that should never have been provoked." Back aboard the Dauntless, Admiral Holt watched the stars bend as her ship entered hyperspace. Her crew worked in perfect rhythm, the hum of engines filling the bridge. She closed her eyes for a moment and whispered, "For Earth, for every life that built this dream." The stars stretched into streaks of light. Humanity was no longer defending. They were arriving. In the black ocean of space, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm breaking through the void. Their formation was silent, perfect, and deliberate. Each ship's hull shimmered with faint reflections from nearby stars, thousands of them moving as one entity. The flagship Dauntless led the armada, its enormous shadow covering the smaller cruisers below. Admiral Serena Holt stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back as her officers monitored the vast field of data before them. "Fleet status?" she asked calmly. "All systems operational, Admiral," replied Commander Imani. "Every ship reports ready. The formation is holding steady across 6 light minutes. We've never seen coordination like this before." Serena nodded. "Good. Let's make sure the galaxy never forgets this site." Far beyond their position, the Galactic Council fleet waited. It was a massive collection of ships from dozens of species, each with different shapes, weapons, and technologies. Their ships gleamed like polished gems against the starlight, beautiful and deadly. The Council had united hundreds of systems before, but never for something like this. They had always seen humanity as a primitive species from a dangerous world. Brave, yes, but reckless. And yet, as the Council fleet scanned the approaching Terran formation, they realized something horrifying. The humans were organized, precise, united. At the center of the Council command ship Elindra, Admiral Corrin of the Zenari Confederation stared at the tactical display. "This can't be right," he muttered. "They're disciplined. Coordinated like we are." Ambassador Terrell, standing beside him, folded his arms. "They shouldn't have this capability. Their entire industrial output can't match even half our supply chains." Corrin turned to him. his scales shimmering under the light, and yet there they are. Across space, the two fleets faced one another, thousands of ships separated by a gulf of silence. No shots fired, no words exchanged, just the cold awareness that history was about to shift. On board the Dauntless, Admiral Holt stood before the viewing window, watching the enemy armada fill the horizon. Her crew waited for her command. But Holt didn't rush. She had no interest in starting the fight first. Humanity hadn't come to destroy, they had come to answer. Open communication channels, she ordered. A few seconds later, a dozen alien faces appeared on the screen, representatives from the Council fleet. Admiral Corrin's voice broke through first. "You've made a grave mistake, human. You cannot win this war. Surrender now and the Council may show mercy." Serena tilted her head slightly. "Mercy," she repeated softly. "That's what you called it when you bombed our colonies, when you starved our trade routes, when you threatened to cut off the oxygen to our domes." She leaned closer, her eyes unblinking. "Tell me, Admiral, did mercy ever make you stronger?" Corrin's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You wanted our answer," she continued. "This is it. Humanity will never kneel again." The transmission ended abruptly. Silence returned. Then from the far end of the human formation, a series of bright lights flared. Not weapons, but signal beacons. Dozens of smaller ships shifted position, their engines glowing brighter as they formed an intricate pattern across the void. The formation resembled something ancient, a symbol from humanity's early history, now etched in light across space. "The Iron Wings," Commander Imani whispered. "The first battle emblem of Earth's defense fleets." Serena smiled faintly. "Let them see it. Let them remember who we are." At that moment, the Galactic Council fleet opened fire. The void exploded into motion. Plasma beams and ion bolts crossed the stars, flashing through the darkness like storms of lightning. The human formation didn't scatter, it advanced. The dauntless shields flared blue as energy strikes rippled across the hull. Alarms blared, officers shouted coordinates, and the first great battle of the New Age began. "Return fire," Serena ordered. Dozens of rail cannons and energy turrets turned in perfect synchronization. Blue light surged across the human fleet as hundreds of kinetic rounds tore through space, striking the alien front line. Council ships scattered, some vanishing in sudden bursts of flame. Others held their ground, firing back desperately. The battle raged for hours. Space itself seemed to scream. Yet through the chaos, humanity's formation held firm, flexible, intelligent, and unbreakable. Every time an alien line advanced, humans countered. Every time a flanking maneuver appeared, the smaller corvettes responded. It was not luck. It was planning. On the Council flagship, Corrin slammed his claws on the console. "They're adapting too fast. Every tactic we use, they counter it instantly." Ambassador Terrell stared at the tactical display, disbelief spreading across his face. "They're learning in real time, like machines." On board the Dauntless, Serena's voice cut through the chaos. "All ships concentrate fire on Grid 7. Cut through their command line. The order spread like wildfire. Hundreds of human ships turned and fired as one. The blast tore through the enemy ranks, splitting the formation in half. The Galactic fleet reeled backward, scrambling to reorganize. In the confusion, the human fleet pushed forward, and then at silence. The guns went quiet. The plasma faded. Both sides drifted in the aftermath of destruction, surrounded by the glowing wrecks of fallen ships. The stars looked distant again, peaceful and cold, as if mocking the chaos below. "Status report," Serena said calmly. 73 ships lost, Commander Imani replied. "Enemy fleet losses. Over 300 confirmed." Serena closed her eyes for a moment, feeling both pride and grief. "Signal the survivors to stand down. We've made our point." Across the void, the Council fleet began retreating, their formations broken. Messages flooded across channels, confusion, disbelief, fear. They had underestimated the humans again. As the last enemy ships vanished into hyperspace, Admiral Holt turned toward her crew. "This isn't victory," she said quietly. "It's a warning." "Then what do we do now, Admiral?" Imani asked. Serena looked out at the wreckage of ships and the faint light of Earth far behind. "Now," she said, her voice steady, "we show them what comes after a warning." Far away on the Council's homeworld, panic filled the chambers once again. Reports poured in, and for the first time in recorded history, the Council realized it had met something beyond its control. A force that did not yield, did not fear, and did not stop. And in the darkness of the stars, humanity continued to advance. The battle was over, but the echoes of it rippled through the galaxy like thunder. News of the Council's defeat spread across hundreds of systems, carried by frightened traders and intercepted signals. Every world under Council control whispered the same impossible truth. Humanity had won. One world, one species, against the combined power of 1,000 empires. It wasn't supposed to be possible. On the Council's capital planet, the Great Hall was in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, desperate to find an explanation that made sense. Holoscreens replayed the same images again and again, human warships tearing through the most advanced fleets in the galaxy with terrifying precision. The footage looked unreal, like a simulation, but every sensor confirmed it was real. Ambassador Tyrell slammed his clawed hand onto the podium. "They are using technology they should not possess," he roared. "No species advances that fast without help." His voice was trembling with anger, but behind it was fear. The council chair, Valor, listened in silence, his luminous form dimming as the chamber erupted around him. "They have dark matter cores," shouted one delegate. "Impossible. That research was banned." "They are copying our weapons," yelled another. Valor raised a hand, silencing them. "Enough," he said. "We must accept what has happened. Humanity has evolved beyond what any of us predicted. We cannot contain them through war alone." Ambassador Tyrell turned toward him. "Then what do you suggest?" Valor's voice was quiet. "We talk." Meanwhile, in orbit above Mars, the mood could not have been more different. The Dauntless floated among the wreckage of destroyed enemy ships. Its hull bore deep scorch marks, but it stood intact, a symbol of Earth's defiance. On the bridge, Admiral Serena Holt looked out at the aftermath. "Open a secure channel," she said. Commander Imani nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Serena leaned forward slightly. "To all surviving Council forces, this is Admiral Holt of the Terran Defense Fleet. You entered our system without cause. You fired upon our people. This is your only warning. Stand down and leave Sol space immediately." There was a long pause. Then, through static, a broken voice replied, "This is Captain Durrell of the Council Fleet. We are withdrawing." "Good choice," Serena replied simply. The transmission ended. The human fleet held position for hours, watching as the remaining alien ships jumped to hyperspace and vanished into the darkness. When the last signal faded, the bridge erupted in quiet applause. No cheers, no celebration, just relief. Serena stood tall, her voice calm. "Send the report to Earth. The Council has retreated." Across the solar system, the message spread. Humanity had not only survived, it had prevailed. Crowds filled the streets of Earth's megacities, waving banners and shouting in unison. On Mars, miners stopped work to salute passing patrol ships. Even the smallest colonies on distant moons played the recording of Admiral Holt's words, replaying the moment she declared humanity's defiance. But not everyone celebrated. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in a secret command center known only to a few, the Strategic Intelligence Division watched the data from the battle. One of the analysts, Dr. Kai Mercer, frowned as he reviewed the readings. "Admiral Holt's fleet performed beyond expected efficiency," he said slowly. "But that's not the strange part." "What is?" asked his superior, General Rains, stepping beside him. Kai pointed to the energy patterns. "Look here. During the battle, the Dauntless and several other ships absorbed enemy fire instead of deflecting it. Their shields converted the energy. That's not standard Terran tech." Rains stared at the display. "Then where did it come from?" Kai hesitated. "I don't know, sir. But the power signature doesn't match anything built in our system. It's older. Much older." General Rains looked thoughtful. "Send the data to Admiral Holt. Tell her to be careful. If we're using something we don't understand, it could be both our strength and our undoing." Back aboard the Dauntless, Serena was already aware. She had seen the strange readings herself, energy patterns that behaved as though the ship itself were alive. Her engineers had no explanation, and yet in the heat of battle that power had saved them. Standing alone in her quarters, she looked at a faint engraving on her desk, the symbol of an ancient Earth project known only to a few, Project Dawnfire. She traced her fingers over it, whispering softly, "So it still exists." Far away, the Council prepared a new strategy. If they could not defeat humanity with strength, they would try with diplomacy and deception. They would pretend to seek peace, while gathering every weapon they had in secret. The plan was simple: lure the humans into a treaty, then strike when their guard was down. But the Council didn't realize that humanity had already predicted this move. Admiral Holt's intelligence network had intercepted transmissions from the Council before they even reached their fleets. The humans knew every plan, every lie, every hidden move. In a dark chamber on the moon base of Tranquility, Admiral Holt met with her closest officers. The holographic table glowed softly, showing a map of Council-controlled space. "They're planning a false peace summit," Commander Imani said grimly. "The message is already circulating. They'll ask for negotiations on neutral ground." Serena nodded slowly. "And we'll agree to it," she said. The officers looked surprised. "Ma'am, that's a trap," one of them said. "I know," Serena replied. "But sometimes the best way to end a trap is to walk straight through it, prepared." For a moment, the room was silent. Then she added, "If they want to talk peace, we'll give them a conversation they'll never forget." She turned toward the hologram of the star field, her eyes fixed on the Council's central world. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "The humans are coming to the negotiation table, on their own terms." And somewhere deep in the void, among the debris of the fallen Council fleet, an abandoned probe drifted silently. Its systems flickered weakly, capturing one last transmission before going dark. A human voice, calm and steady, whispering through static. "We are not conquerors. We are survivors, and survivors don't forget." The vastness of space was quiet again, but the silence carried tension sharp enough to cut through steel. Weeks had passed since the great battle near Sol, yet across the galaxy the wound had not healed. The Galactic Council pretended to recover, announcing the Summit of Restoration, a peace conference that would, they claimed, end the growing conflict. But everyone knew what it truly was. It was bait. In the outer colonies of humanity, fleets were being rearmed. New ships emerged from orbital shipyards above Mars, forged faster than any alien engineer believed possible. The humans worked with tireless precision. They didn't boast. They didn't broadcast. They built. In every shadow of the solar system, something massive was taking shape. A plan born not from rage, but survival. Admiral Serena Holt stood in the war room of the Dauntless. Around her, a dozen officers watched holographic projections of the galaxy spinning in silence. Lines of red light marked the Council's fleets gathering near the central world of Arendor, where the peace summit was to be held. She studied it carefully. "They want us to walk right into their territory," Commander Imani said. "Every sensor, every gun, every trap pointed at us." Serena's eyes narrowed. "Yes," she said softly. "And they'll be waiting for a fleet, which is why we won't bring one." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. "Ma'am, you plan to go alone?" "Not alone," she said, her voice steady. "Just unexpected." Hours later, under strict secrecy, the Dauntless departed from Mars orbit with a small escort of stealth ships, barely a dozen in total. Their hulls shimmered with light-bending fields, rendering them invisible to almost all known scanners. They slipped into the void like ghosts, moving toward the Council's heart. Meanwhile, on Arendor, the Council prepared its own spectacle. The capital city glowed under twin suns, its towers rising like crystalline spears. Thousands of delegates and soldiers filled the airspace, and massive defense grids shimmered above the skyline. Inside the Council Hall, Valor, the luminous chair of the Council, awaited humanity's representatives with cold patience. Ambassador Tyrell stood beside him, his expression sharp. "We'll offer them false security," he muttered. "Once their leaders are inside, we end this." Valor gave a faint nod, his form flickering like a candle. "Do not underestimate them again, Tyrell," he said quietly. "They are not the same as before. Something in them changed." "Changed or not," Tyrell replied bitterly, "they will not survive what we've prepared." 3 days later, the human delegation arrived. To the Council's surprise, there was no fleet, no escort, no planetary defense. Only one ship. A single vessel descended through the golden clouds, its hull black and sleek, carrying the symbol of the United Earth Defense, the Dauntless. When it touched down on the landing platform, hundreds of alien soldiers surrounded it. The air was tense, charged with hidden fear. As the ramp descended, Admiral Serena Holt stepped forward, her boots echoing against the platform. She was unarmed, wearing the black uniform of Earth's command. Her expression was calm, but her presence made the air feel heavier. Terrell approached with his guards, his voice dripping with mock politeness. "Admiral Holt," he said, "you come without an army, that is..." "Bold," Serena smiled faintly. "I didn't come to fight. I came to talk." He gestured for her to follow, leading her through the shining corridors of the council hall. Every alien they passed stopped and watched, their eyes filled with curiosity and unease. Humanity had become a story whispered across the stars, a legend of defiance and survival. And now, the legend was walking among them. Inside the central chamber, thousands of delegates gathered, their voices falling silent as Serena entered. The entire hall glowed with white light, the air thick with tension. Vaylor's form floated above the assembly, his energy dim and cold. "Admiral Holt," he began, his tone formal, "you claim humanity desires peace, yet your fleets move across our borders. Your weapons grow in number. Tell us, is this your idea of diplomacy?" Serena met his gaze calmly. "Peace doesn't come from silence," she said. "It comes from respect. And you've given us none." Terrell slammed his fist onto the table. "You are outnumbered, human. You stand on our world surrounded by our armies, and still you talk as if you have power." The air in the chamber shimmered. Serena turned her head slightly, and for the first time her expression hardened. "Outnumbered?" she said softly. "You think numbers matter to us?" Outside, the sky darkened. The council guards turned upward as something massive appeared. Not a fleet, but a shadow stretching across the heavens. The clouds glowed red as dozens of human ships decloaked in orbit, their engines burning blue fire. At their center, a shape unlike anything seen before emerged, a new warship. Larger than any class recorded, its surface glowing with golden veins of energy. The entire council chamber shook as energy readings spiked. Delegates gasped as data screens filled with alerts. "What is that?" Vaylor whispered. Serena's voice echoed through the hall. "You wanted to see our strength? You call it a weapon. We call it our promise." Terrell's voice cracked with disbelief. "That ship. It's impossible." "It's not a ship," Serena said quietly. "It's humanity's answer to tyranny. Project Dawnfire." The sky split open as the massive vessel activated its engines, releasing waves of light that rippled through the atmosphere. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't threatening. It was simply there, undeniable proof that humanity had surpassed the Council's understanding. Inside the chamber, silence reigned. Even Vaylor's voice faltered. "Why show us this?" he asked. "Because," Serena said, stepping closer, "you thought war was our only language. But this," she gestured toward the glowing ship above, "this is how we speak now. We don't seek destruction. We seek equality. But if you force our hand again," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "then the next light you see won't be dawn. It will be fire." Her words hung in the air like thunder. Outside, the dawn fire hovered silently, its golden hull reflecting the twin suns. The alien world trembled beneath its shadow. The Council had wanted submission. Instead, they were shown something far more terrifying: restraint. Serena turned and walked toward the exit. No one stopped her. No one spoke. The guards moved aside without orders. As she stepped back onto the landing platform, she looked once more at the ship above and whispered, "Message delivered." The engines roared and the Dauntless lifted into the sky, leaving the Council world bathed in light. For the first time in galactic history, the Council did not issue a response. They couldn't. Humanity had already said everything. The Dauntless drifted through the black sea of stars, its engines whispering softly against the void. The mission to Arendor was over, yet the ripples it caused spread faster than light. Every world in the Galactic Council's domain had seen what happened. The image of the human flagship hovering above the Council's capital had become legend, proof that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. Inside the Council chambers, silence had turned into paranoia. No one trusted each other anymore. Some species called for surrender. Others demanded vengeance. And a few, those who remembered their own history of rebellion, whispered the unthinkable, that humanity might not be the enemy but the future. Ambassador Terrell had not slept since that day. The sight of the massive ship still haunted him. Its glow had not been like any weapon he had seen. It was alive, pulsing, resonating with something ancient. He paced through the observation deck, eyes locked on the stars. "They cannot be allowed to spread," he muttered. "If they unite the others, the council will fall." Chair Valor's voice echoed softly behind him. "Perhaps it is already falling." Trell turned sharply. "You saw what they did. They came to our world as if it were theirs. That ship defied every law of physics we know." Valor's shimmering form flickered, his light dim, and yet it did not fire. "Humanity could have destroyed us, but they chose not to. Ask yourself why." Trell clenched his fists. "Fear," he spat. "They want us to fear them." "No," Valor said quietly. "They want us to understand them. And that is what terrifies you." Back aboard the Dauntless, Admiral Serena Holt watched the holographic projections of hundreds of intercepted Council transmissions. Her face was unreadable, her mind racing. The Council's unity was cracking faster than she expected. "They're fracturing," said Commander Imani beside her. "Half of their members refuse to send reinforcements. Some are even reaching out privately to us." Serena's gaze drifted to the glowing image of the Dawnfire, humanity's newest and most mysterious creation. "That ship changed everything," she murmured. "Even without firing a shot." Imani smiled faintly. "A symbol is more powerful than a weapon," Serena nodded. "And symbols can reshape entire civilizations." In the following days, quiet messages began arriving across human networks, encrypted transmissions from alien diplomats, resistance leaders, and scientists. They wanted to talk, to trade, to learn. The galaxy that once feared humanity now sought its friendship. But Serena knew better than to celebrate. She had seen how fear could turn into hatred just as quickly. On Earth, President Alara Voss addressed the United Assembly for the first time since the Arendor confrontation. Her speech was broadcast to every colony and outpost. "For centuries," she began, "we were seen as a danger to the galaxy. They called us reckless, violent, unstable. Perhaps they were right, we are dangerous. But not because we destroy, because we endure." Her words echoed through the hearts of billions. "We faced extinction and rebuilt ourselves from ash. We do not conquer, we survive. And if survival is rebellion, then humanity will never apologize for existing." Applause roared through the assembly halls. Across colonies, workers, soldiers, and citizens raised the flag of the United Earth Alliance. For the first time, humanity didn't feel like an isolated species. They felt united, and the stars no longer seemed unreachable. But far from the cheering worlds, the shadows of war still lingered. In the deep reaches of Council space, secret fleets began to gather. The Council had lost face, but not pride. The Valari and Zanari factions, bitter rivals before, now found a common cause: revenge. They called it the Purge Protocol. In hidden shipyards, they constructed a weapon meant to dwarf even humanity's most powerful warship. Admiral Serena received the first whispers of it from a captured transmission. The data was fragmented, but the intent was clear. "They're building something," Imani said, scrolling through the coded patterns. "Massive scale. Energy output equivalent to a small star." Serena leaned forward. "Where?" "Unknown. The signal traces to deep space. Uncharted sectors near the Perseus Rift." The Admiral's expression hardened. "Then that's where we go next." 2 days later, the Dauntless and a task force of stealth cruisers jumped into hyperspace. Their engines glowed faint blue as they vanished into the abyss. The journey through the rift was dangerous. Radiation storms, gravitational traps, and magnetic distortions that had swallowed fleets before. Yet the humans pressed on, navigating as if they'd known the path all along. When they emerged on the other side, the sight before them made the crew fall silent. Floating in the shadow of a dying red giant was an enormous structure, part station, part weapon. Dozens of Council ships surrounded it, working tirelessly, their lights like swarming insects around a god. Commander Imani whispered, "My God. They're building a star killer." Serena stared at the monstrous construction, her reflection glimmering in the viewport. "They think building something bigger makes them stronger," she said quietly. "But they never learned the one thing that matters." Imani looked at her. "What's that, ma'am?" Serena turned away from the glass, her voice steady. Strength without wisdom always collapses. She ordered silent observation drones to record every angle. The Dauntless's sensors captured the weapon's massive energy rings pulsing rhythmically, each beat stronger than the last. It wasn't finished yet, but once complete, it could wipe out entire systems in one strike. Back in council space, Valor received word of the secret project. His energy flickered in anger. "You fools," he said to his fellow leaders. "You think destruction will restore our power? It will only destroy what little remains of it." But his warnings were ignored. The council was too divided, too proud to listen. As the Dauntless turned to leave the rift, Serena looked at the stars around them. They flickered faintly, as if warning her of what was to come. "Send word to Earth," she said. "They're preparing for the final act. And so are we." The engines roared softly, and the ship vanished into the folds of hyperspace once more. In the darkness they left behind, the half-built weapon pulsed again, slow, steady, and ominous. Somewhere deep within its core, an ancient code awakened, written not by the Council, but by something far older. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was not the only power that had been underestimated.